Kusile ngwane lomuhla nkovusele nkwamukele ehlelweni Kusile Breakfast Show nalomuhla. Libito lami nguSifiso Shumnakbili Nxumalo. Part of the show today, the persisting concern around a lingering gender-based violence. Just yesterday, siboneke my headlines, endzabeni kwekutsi a woman was stabbed 7 times and killed. Now it is alleged that the man that killed her in broad daylight in front of guards. Today, we wake up with yet another worrying story where residents of Matsapa are living in fear as there's a man who is raping women there. Police are on a manhunt as we speak for an alleged serial rapist around Matsapa. It has been gathered that labasihlanu sebakakadlelwe emakhaya noma etindlini tabo in locations around Matsapa. Now these women, according to sources, were sexually abused around Lokoba, where the suspect reportedly broke into their houses and forced himself on them. Such terrible stories are happening in the backdrop of numerous efforts to call and combat gender-based violence. And today we will talk to Xolani Hlatswago from Africa, who is the Africa Region Coordinator from I1 Billion Rising, who are amongst the many organizations doing what they are really trying to do to call and combat gender-based violence. Ngabe akubafaki into kuyamande ematvolweni imisebenzi noma imetamo lengaka ekulweni nako kuhlukubetana ngetebulili ekuthenini nje kuchubeke vela ama instances lawa kusho kuthini, especially starting the year 2024. Just a week ago we had Tamsanga Sibanzo was speaking on a big conference labatawuba nayo kutheni we want to co-opt men into these conversations of ending gender-based violence. It seems we really need to do it as fast as we can and maybe have it nationally and have everyone involved njengoba sikubona selokhu kusikhathata mihla yonke. But nje singangeni kulokuningi ake sibuke ama leading headlines kumaphephandaba lomhla. The leading headlines ku Eswatini Observer lomuhla ekuseni. The leading story there, Ndunankulu leave stern warning to FESBIC. He will act decisively on elements that threaten economic stability and peace, says FESBIC approach to concerns similar to a terrorist organization. He warns against tarnishing of King's name. FESBIC commits to working with government. Prime Minister Russell Dlamini gestures during a meeting convened with the Federation of Eswatini Business Community Executive yesterday on that photo, which is attached there. On another one, government delivers 12 key meds. You must now apply for a travel document is another leading headline. Eswatini Observer, the leading story there, Wesleyan's bosses wanted out. Is the tail wagging the dog? This is the question that will linger in the minds of football fanatics after troubled half giants Manzini Wanderers fans reportedly call for the sacking of 2 directors from the team. That's the biggest headline there. On another one, 50 Emalangeni for double headers, 30 Emalangeni for singles. Ibuyile indeed. And that is the money that's going to be charged Emma fans. It's for the love of the game. It's another leading headline which speaks to the footsteps of the world-renowned Mama Joy from South Africa, local super fan Sitembile, that has been attending a number of matches around the country, such that many often wonder which team she supports. Sibona ke thombe takhe lapha ephephandabeni avele abongelela emateam lahlukahlukene. Saqhubeka sibuka eSwatini Daily News, the front page this morning. Prime Minister issues stern warning to FESBIC. Prime Minister Russell Dlamini has issued a stern warning to the Federation of the Eswatini Business Community to disassociate itself from violent prescribed institutions. The Prime Minister disclosed that a meeting was held on Tuesday with Fesbik at cabinet offices where both parties engaged each other on what the government noted as a campaign by the Federation's leadership to bring discord and confusion within the business community. On another one, woman loses over 350,000 Emalangeni in get-rich ritual. On another one, alleged Facebook rapist faces one charge of rape. On the front page, on the back end of the Eswatini Daily News, Gwanele was a fighter, according to Coach Nyanga. Heartbroken Manzini Wanderers coach Nyanga Crooks Klope has described dearly departed club defender Gwanele Dlamini, who passed away on New Year's Eve, as a leader, loyal and dependable. Dominic monitoring internationals ahead of tight schedule is another leading headline from the international front. Birmingham City sack Wayne Rooney. Lawo ke leading headlines emaphephandabeni sitaba hlelo emakethe sibuye sibuke indzaba tesiswati ngayinzawo.
Umsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV utibophelele kuhlonipha nekulandzela umgomo wetekusakata loweluswe libandla letekuchumana eVeni.
Ngephansi kwalomgomo sitimisele kusakata tindzaba letentiya ngaleso sikhatsi, tindzaba letide emagama lacosheme, letitsembekile, letitsintsa tonke tinhlangothi naletisebaleni.
Kusukela kutepolitiki, tetemphilo, tekulima, tetinkantolo netemhlaba wonke jikelele, siniletsela tindzaba njengoba tinjalo ngaleso sikhatsi letenteka ngaso.
Kanzi kulomsakato siphindze sikulethele lonke luhlobo lwetemidlalo kusuka emidlalweni welibhola letinyawo kuye emidlalweni ledlalelwa ematafuleni kanye naleto letichamuka ngaphandle kwakuleli.
Leti tindzaba lotiletselwa ngumsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV.
Asithabele nathi tindzaba tesiswati ngwenyama seyibusise ukuthi lacwebetelako ahlakule insimi yebukhosi kuMazibeke ngalosithathu ekuseni. Ngwenyama iphefumule ngendvuna yemajaha magcobisa ndwandwe esigodlweni eLitsitsini lapho khona libutfo ligitsene ngwenyama lingakayitfoli i-order yangalosithathu.
Njengobe ingwenyama seyibusise kuhlakulwa kwamasimu ebukhosi lacubetelako sekavele ngemumo ukuqhubeka nawo umsebenzi. Esibayeni esigodlweni eLitsitsini libutfo lebelibulala inyoka liqale ngekuhlehla. Kuhlehla lacobetelako akhithe ingoma temgubho nengonyama. Ingonyama beyisingathwe bomake emakhosikati. utsite ngemva kwaloko ingwenyama yakhipha i-order yangalesithathu ngendvuna Maxobisa Ndwandwe.
Uthokandaba usasa uma zibeke
Sibika kwethu indzabeni ngisandile Makhanya esigodlweni elitsitsini.
Hulumende uthi uyanaka ngekukhathateka ukuthi abantu labathite kanye netinhlangano temalungelo ebantfu bayachubeka nekungcolisa ligama lesilo ingwenyama yemaswati ngokuthi iyatsinzeka ekubulaweni kwemmeli Thulani Maseko. Hulumende uthi uyanaka ukuthi kwangathi labanye banemalungelo lamcoka kunalabanye tekuyinhlanhla lembi. Ingani nakubulawa sikhulu Mahloma ngulabo labadibita ngekuthi ma-Solidarity Forces ngenyanga yeLweti eminyakeni wa-2022 kude ngishona munye tinhlanganweni takamhlaba kanye nalabo labamelele emalungelo ebantfu labagceka kubulawa kwesikhulu. Nakusho kwembiko lokhishwe ngumhlonishwano nankhulu emaphoyisa ka-traffic labulawa kude tinhlanganweni tangephandle lwakugceka loko. Hulumende uxwayisa labo bantfu kanye naleto tinhlangano letenta loko ukuthi tikuyekele ngcolisa ligama lengwenyama. Nankulu uthi hulumende utawutsatsa tinyathelo leticasha kute leticasha kude lendzaba ilungiseke. Ngakulokunye hulumende uthi uyanaka ukuthi inhlangano yaka-Facebook ibonakala itimisele kudvunga luhlangothi lwabosomabhizinisi eveni. Kungako-ke hulumende abambe umhlangano na-Facebook lomuhla mhla itolo mhla 2 kulesetulu. Kulo mhlangano Facebook uchazile ukuthi usebenza njani kanike hulumende umelulekile Facebook ukuthi yakagcile emgomeni wakhe ayekele chukuluta labanye bosomabhizinisi kanye nekwekuthi alandzele tindlela letisemtsetfweni uma ngabe kukhona lapho anetikhalo khona. Bafuyi bakuleli bakhonile kukhicita inyama yenkhomo lenganga 12,000 metric tons ledliwe lapha eveni ngesikhathi live limise kungena kwenyama yenkhomo lechamuka eveni leNingizimu Afrika. Ngokusho kwemcondzisi wetilwane etiko letekulima Dr. Xolani Dlamini, bafuyi bakhone kutsengisa 300 metric tons ngaphandle kwelive. Ngazike Dlamini uthi manyenti kakhulu ematfuba emakethe kuleli kanye nasetimakethe letingephandle letifaka ekhatsi live leNorway, live leTaiwan, imakethe yaseMelika kanye nemakethe yemave alabamhlophe.
Sikhonile ukuthi sichubeke sibe nayo ibhifu yathu ukuthi yayikake yashoda isitolo. Phindze futhi sachubeka sakhona ukuthengiselana nalabo lesithengiselana nabo. Ama-exports ethu ma ngichecka ngikhanze ukuthi aya la ku-300 metric tons. Laphumela ngaphandle. Lokukhona lokuncane leso importile ngoba phela kukhona vele lesitabulanza ngaphandle ikakhulu inyama letithite lesingakhona ithini kuba nato ngokwenela noma ke indawo bekusanje khona lebasima red offals noma ukhanze ukuthi la ngwane mhlambe abantu bathanza imisila oxtail bobani kunganangenile ke lokho kungachamuki koja kumakhelwane wethu lonesifo kungene ukuchamuka ngesheya kwetilwandle lokunene kudenyalo losone doubt noma lo ngaboni ukuthi na unengomo unemali ma prices etingomo siwabonile setiyafika kubo 15,000 inkomo inye lokho kuthi thina sidetifo nyalo kusho ukuthi kude imarket emhlabeni lesingede safinyelela kuyo siyathi ukuthi sinale market yaka EU yamavela labamhlophe ikhona vele leyo ngiyona ngidawuthi ngiyona sisime kuyo ngalama standards bese kuba khona imarket yase Norway leya se Norway ke isasiniketa iquota ya 500 metric tons but lo 500 metric tons wequota uta nema prices noma uta nemali ngawusilengcono la ekuthengeni lo 500 ngetulu kwa 500 sewungete wazi so utawuthengisa nje like any other normal. Kunemakethe yase Taiwan nayo levulekile imele wona maswati. Kuna AGOA lo siniketako ye-access ye-agricultural products nayo inyama leyo ke vele ngingasho ukuthi sengingaqali nekuyisebenta ngaloyo ukuthi kusede laba nathi private sector tinkampani leti zivine ngifuna kumix America.
Litiko letekulima lithi alijabuli ngelinani lemhlaba lelelinywe ebalimi kwamanje kanti ke ngekusho kwemcondzisi wetekulima kuleli tiko Nelson Mavuso emakhaya lamanyenti alime esinye sivanzi aseletinye akasadilimi.
Lakuleli liyayilima hektare embili lasuka ku-52,000 kuya ku-78,000 hectares. Umcondzisi wetekulima etiko letekulima Nelson Mavuso uthi leli tiko kuyalikhatsata kubona emasimu langakalinywa.
Lesikukhandzako la ngaphandle emasimu lamaningi ahledi. This is despite ukuthi kunemvula lejabulisako kakhulu. Why are we saying iyajabulisa is because liyana ebusuku liphume emini libalele. Emakhaba ngendlela lamahle ngawo siyathokoda kakhulu selitiko. But ke le concern lesi expressako ngilokuthi umhlaba lomningi ahlede emasimu. Kungako lamuhla sithi sivula nje umnyaka lawo masimu lawo can still be utilized for crop production. Starting with kusenetinhlanyelo temimbila lesingahlele tindzawo letingasheshi tihlaselwe ngemakhada. I'll make an example of ultra short season maize varieties. So sithi balimi labasenayo imihlaba especially leyo lefbiyelwe basengawuhlanyela umbila. Baphinze bahlanyele bobhatata. Baphinze bahlanyele because now we are entering the season for legumes. Nakhona lapho siyabakhuthaza abalimi bethu ukuthi abahambe bawusebenzise lo mhlaba losele. Kune concern ke ukuthi lidulu liyana lina kahle futhi we are happy about that. Emakhaba ke ngendlela lamahle ngawo kuyasho ukuthi ikhona a fair share of rain and a fair share of sunshine. So kwethu nje kumele njalo khula kuphela.
Mengameli wenhlangano yebalimi kuleli Eswatini National Agricultural Union esinawu Tumsani Masonto axoxisana nalomsakazo elicingweni uthi lesinye sesizathu lesenta sibalimi bangalimi kudula kwetindo tekulima lokufaka ikhazi bomanyolo kanye netinhlanyelo etindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla nginavuma inkosi inzinisa sisembabane.
Kulandzela kutsi indvuna yelitiko letempilo umhlonishwa Mduduzi Mathebula yetfule umbiko webantfwana bebatelwe esikhatsini lesingema-hour lasiphohlongo ekucala kwemnyaka wa 2024. Litiko letempilo selikhipha umbiko lophelele wekutalwa kwebantfwana kulolu suku. Labantfwana bange-73 nalabatsatfu sebabonke.
Lo mbiko ucukethe isibalo sebantwana lababelekelwe etibhedlela tahulumende kanye naleto letitimele kanti ukhomba ukuthi bantwana laba bafana bangu-29 bese kuthi labangemantombazana bangu-44. Sifundza lesihambe embili isifundza sakaHhohho ngebantwana labangu-32 silandzelwe isifundza sakaManzini ngebantwana labangu-23. Tifundza taseshiselweni naselubombo tona tithole bantwana labayimfica sifundza sesinye. Tibhedlela letitimele tona tithole bantwana labathathu lekungumfana munye namantombazana lamabili. Bantwana labangemantombazana batelwe baba banyende esifundzeni sakaHhohho ngalabange-21 kwalandzela isifundza sakaManzini ngemantombazana la-15 kwalandzela labasihlanu besifundza saseshiselweni kwatse elibonjeni kwaba ngemantombazana lamathathu nje kuphela. Sifundza sakaHhohho siphindze sahamba embili ngekutfola abantwana laba bafana ngalabali-11 kwalandzela sakaManzini ngalabasiphohlongo lubombo lwatfola labasithupha kwagcina sifundza saseshiselweni ngalabane. Etindzabeni te-Eswatini TV kubika Mbonga Dube eMbabane.
Akukapheli neliviki lekucala leminyaka abatali labanye sebavele basukumile baphuma bangena netikolo abafunela abantwana babo indzawo yesikolo. Batali lesikhulumisane nabo bathi bachutshwa yishisekelo yekufuna kubona abantwana babo baphumelela empilweni. Mase inhlangano lelwela emalungelo ebafelokati kanye nebantfu labasha umhluma Women and Youth Foundation ithi bangamashumi lamabili nesihlanu bantu lababike kuthathelwa umhlaba wabo kusukela tilishumi enyangeni yeNgongoni kude kube ngilanga ke layitolo. Simo selitulu lesiguquguqukako lesiletha kukhinyabeteka etinhlangothini letahlukene sitawuchubeka ngekusho kwembiko wenhlangano yakamhlaba yabososayensi lecwaninga ngekuguquka kwesimo selitulu ukhumbuta emave ikakhulu lawo-ke lahlukahlukene indzaba yokuthi kutawuba nekushisa lokutawengca ku-1.5 degrees Celsius simo-ke sitawuchubeka sishube kakhulu mayelana nesimo selitulu lesibulala takhiwo netilimo. Mathokoza Mthethwa kanye newakakhe Mata leseba Tanzania iminyaka lengamashumi lasihlanu nakunye basi letinye tetizatfu letibanga kuhlukubetana ngetebulili kungakhoni kukhulumisana kwetiTanzani kanye nekutsengelana kwetingane tintfo letidule kakhulu. Lo mndeni wakamthethwa uthi bacala kutsandzana ngeminyaka wa-1973 base bashada ngeminyaka wa-1978. Inkantolo izivumile isicelo sekutokela ngephandle semsolwa longumshayeli wekhumbi lobekwe emacala ekufelwa bantfu ngesiphosiso kanye nekuphula umtsetfo wemgwaco. Inkantolo itsite lo msolwa akakhiphe imali lengo-3,500 emalangeni. Umsolwa losisebenti sembutfo wetekuvikela uvele embi kwenkantolo yamanje yenhlangano abekwe licala lekudubula mzamo Tshabetse. Kanti-ke umsolwa loneminyaka lengamashumi lamabili nakubili uvele enkantolo yamanje eMbabane abekwe licala lekwephula umtsetfo lokugwema kuhlukubetana ngelicansi kanye nelidlame emakhaya i-SODV. Lo msolwa kuthiwa wente lokhu ngekuthi aphahlade mahlalekhukhwini wesingani sakhe. Umsolwa utshele inkantolo ukuthi simangali sasimethembise 500 emalangeni wekutsenga khisimusi kuphela nje nabangambathisana ingubo.
Inkantolo
Kutemidlalo babebane badlali labasishiye emhlabeni eminyakeni lophelile wa-2023 esigabeni saka-National First Division kanye naka-Premier League. Inhlangano ye-Premier League ithi lizinga lemidlalo likhomba kuphakama sibili kodwa kube buhlungu ukulahlekelwa ngulabadlali labasishiye emhlabeni.
Kwabe ngumnyaka lomuhle we-2023 kuyo inhlangano edlalisa ibhola esigabeni saka-Premier League kulandzela ukuthi badlali labane basishiyile emhlabeni esigabeni saka-Premier League kanye nesigabeni saka-National First Division. Ngenyanga yakholwana eminyakeni lophelile licembu le-Ubombo Flyers lidlala ngaphasi kwe-National First Division lalahlekelwa nguSimanga Mbaya lowasishiya emhlabeni. Licembu le-Flyers ngenyanga yeLweti eminyakeni lophelile laphindze lalahlekelwa ngumdlali Phumlani Masango lonaye wasishiya emhlabeni. Enyangeni lephelile yeNgongoni esigabeni saka-Premier League Mukelo Nkambule labekadlalela icembu le-Denver Sundowns naye wasishiya emhlabeni. Kanti ekupheleni kweminyaka wa-2023 umndeni webhola wabona ikakhulukazi esigabeni saka-Premier League kwanele Dlamini labekadlalela icembu leManzini Wanderers naye asishiya emhlabeni. I-Premier League of Eswatini ithi noma lizinga lekuchutselana kulomnyaka lophelile likhombe kuphakama kodwa-ke kulahlekelwa abadlali labane eminyakeni emunye kuyintfo lebamise kabi kuwumndeni webhola. I-Premier League ithi endzabeni letsinza umdlali Dlamini losishiyile emhlabeni emalangeni lambalwa lendlulile inhlangano isetawuthathwa sinyathelo ukuthi licembu leManzini Wanderers linikwe lithuba ukuthi lingadlala umdlalo walo weNgonyama Cup nelicembu lesisonke kulempelasonto letako ngesizathu sebulukhuni lelicembu lelibhekene naso. Lobikela umsakazi Eswatini TV kutemidlalo ngilinda Dlamini kanzombi kuhlanganiswe nguFabrice Msonera eMbabane.
Mabhalanelo omkhulu wenhlangano ledlalisa umdlalo wemphebedo uthi sekutawungedeka tinhlelo temchutselwano ebadlalini labancane pheceleti ema-juniors baphindze batfole litfuba lekuchutselana ngaphandle kulomnyaka losetulu wa-2024.
Usaqala umnyaka lomusha wa-2024 inhlangano engamela umdlalo webhola lemphebedo lapha eveni Eswatini Tennis Association ithi itimisele kakhulu kunika lithuba badlali abancane ukuthi bachubeke nekungenela imicutselwano yangaphandle kuphindze kuqiniswe nemicutselwano yakuleli.
Ngicabanga ukuthi kokuqala lesitawukwenda ukuthi lama club championships achubeke abe maningi so that bantwana batawuba khona noma ngabe sebaphumile la esikoleni ngoba esikhathini esiningi bathi ngokuphuma la sikoleni babe sesebalahleka. Mhlawumbe ke nama-tournaments ngephandle kwelive kutawufuna ukuthi athi kuba maningana ngoba abantwana lokhu badvonsako kubona ukuthi naku lapha sengilapha kufuna ukuthi ngichubekele embili. Ngiko konke lokho lesitakubuka ukuthi ama-tournaments ngephandle sitamele ukuthi sibamikise nangekhathi ekhaya ama-tournament abe khona nekukhuthata nje lama-club ukuthi achubeke agcine. But-ke lokho kutawenteka ngekuthi tibonsa tivele tibe tiningi kuze kuthi lo msebenzi utawuhamba kahle kakhulu. Otherwise badlali bakhona, lithalenta likhona.
Lenhlangano ithi itawuphindze ibuke indlela yokungeta labo labasekela lemicutselwane leminye ngetimali. Kwanyalo lenhlangano isebenzisana kakhulu nelibhange Building Society lekhomba kuchubeka nekusekela lo mdlalo lapha evenini. Lobikela umsakazo Eswatini TV kutemidlalo ngilinda Dlamini kanti umbiko uhlanganiswa nguFabrice Msonera eMbabane.
Sibahlwe emakethe sitabuya sichubeke nehlelo.
Lifestyle is all about inspiration, drive, and swag. Eswatini Lifestyle is informative and fun while covering all aspects of life, be it people, places, and trends in the kingdom of Eswatini. We got you covered. The focus is on the quality of life. Eswatini Lifestyle will spark your interest. Catch Eswatini Lifestyle every Friday at 7:30 p.m. on Eswatini TV, Sibugo Semaswati.
Kulomhla siphinze sikwamukele ehlelweni siphinze samukele naXolani ihlatshwako from 1 billion rising campaign. Xolani, welcome to the program. Sakwamukela nje sifuna ukukhulumisa nayo indzaba leshisako lemcoka kakhulu nangangaka indzaba ye gender based violence. I think ending the year 2023 that the final quarter in particular we saw perpetual continuous headlines gender-based violence concerning kakhulu, and we did see some of in response to call and combat gender-based violence. But as we start the year, just yesterday we woke up with the headline. We see there's a man that is stabbed their girlfriend 7 times in broad daylight in front of Emma guards, which is also another concerning thing. But another day singena nje sukwini lalo muhla sibona amanye headlines akutheni emaphoyisa are on a manhunt of finding a rapist lapha Matsapa losa rape bantu labendlula ngisho ku5 tindlini tabo yabangqongqothela afika abakagahlele abantu bakumathapha nje sikhuluma, especially the women are living in fear. Just a week and a half ago, I think we're speaking to Tamsanga Sibanza about the 1 Billion Rising festival on ending gender-based violence. You know, when you create such initiatives, you want to address this thing, particularly with the direction that you want to take with the festival, you're co-opting yes, we do see how much of a feasible approach that is. Perpetuating this big problem as perpetrators. But just talk to us about what it's saying to you as you are, putting foot forward, putting foot on the ground, organizing this event to see such incidents happening.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu ngibingelele nembukelo ekhaya. Happy New Year. Kwekucala nje umuntu la ngakusho ukuthi kuyadumata lokubona kuchubeka kwanza leti ndzaba tekuhlukubeta lesitibonako kuma cases lavelayo emaphepheni. Kepha ke umuntu la ngakusho ukuthi leti kuti inkhomba lefanele ukuthi tisitshele silive, tisitshele sithi inhlangano simatiko lahlukene ukuthi nasibuka lo mnyaka wa 2024 ngitiphi izinto lekufanele ukuthi sisende kangcono ekutheni sikuvala kuphi lokuhlukubeta noma loludlame lolungaka. And sisiucala nje and nangabe sifuna ukucala ube ngiloyo lophumelelako asingawukhuti kuphela lo monakalo lona kufuna sithathe ama-actions laphathekako la kungona la tawushintsha letindlela labantu labangiyo la tawuphinze ende nalomunye lofuna ukuthi akwende kusasa athi khanze angakwendi athi khanze angasiye umhlukubedi athi khanze noma ngabe bekathi uyalingeka ufuna kungena kiso lesimo lesi abone ukuthi umthetho utawubhekana nayo nemimango utawubhekana nawo kulama cases nje lo wavetako ukuthi lona lebamgwaze ema 7 times bamgwaze embi kwebantu umuntu uyatibuta ukuthi nangabe sesifike esigabeni ukuthi umuntu akasanamahloni nathi usenebantwini akasabe sabi nebantu so vangazi ukuthi unalamandla ukuthi angakhipha umphefumulo embi kwebantu nebantu kwesaba kulamlela nako ngilokunye lokufuna ukutshela ukuthi kunenye ekufanele sikwende nemakhaya ethu nangabe sesingenelwa nebantu sihlede endzaweni tethu tekuphepha bete leto sihlukubeta nako lokho ngilokunye lekufanele umcondo welive njengoba nje iParliament itawuvulwa uhulumende atawucala tinhlelo takhe letehlukahlukene netinhlangano asale siba nendlela ukuthi yini lesingayenza singakhuti kuphela ekutheni sende tigaba letehlukahlukene letawuvimbela lo singumkhankaso ke i1 billion rising kule nhlelo lethu lesibukele le festival njengoba usho ukuthi sihlosile ukuthi bobabe babe khona ngoba esikhatsini lesinengi ikakhulu kade labasebasha sihamba siyokhuluma emangweni bona bekho basemisebentini bona bale so si create ke the environment le lapho atati khanza lo muntu lomusha this young man this young woman lo babe namake aku platform lapho evangaza ukuthi ngiyakhona engage kahle nale message ngithola ichamuka kubantu la kuma peers ngithola kubantu labafana nami hayi ukuthi ngitshelwa ngilomunye ukuthi kufanele ukuthi ngiyentene ngicabanga nje ukuthi sekwendekile sekunengi and we cannot take this as busy as inazana indlela lejwayelekile asizame kwenta indlela ukuthi le live le new world lesiyifunako lede ludlame sicala njani kuyilungiselela silive.
Kolani, there were calls last year, it was concerted efforts, really, a concerted call, let us indeed declare gender-based violence as a national emergency. We do see, perhaps, I think you're the right person to tell us, the gender-based violence budget requirements that are growing every year, but based on what does this mean? And let us indeed declare it a national emergency, and how soon should we do that before it's too expensive to do it?
Ngiyabonga kakhulu bhuti. Njengoba bengisho ukuthi sekufuna siqale sisebenze singasakhudi. First of all umuntu appreciate nje ukuthi lihhovisi la DPM silibonile lisukuma selakhathi inhlelo lesethi responda immediately on this crisis. Singabuke ukuthi sidaba neplan letawu sibuka 5 years sibuka nyalo ukuthi lala sikhona khona nyalo yini lesingakwenda ukuthi within a year sikhone lokuthi lolu dlame lolungaka sikhone kulucetha. And ngoba nasikhuluma ngekudeclare i-GBV ibe i-national crisis kunama segments lahlukahlukene lekufanele siwabuke sisakwenda konke lokho. It includes le awareness raising, it includes lokufundiseka kwebantu emangweni nakuphi ngetinhlelo emakhala lahlukahlukene ukuxhumana nebantu ngaba i-radio i-TV njengoba silana nemaphephandzaba siphinde sibuke ukuthi bantu sebafundisekile siqinisa njani nangale emthethweni labo lasebatabe babanjiwe babhekana nemithetho nekubuka ukuthi kuleto tindzawo lapho abantu bangabalekela khona labacinzetelekile Sidilekelelwa kanjani bese sibita ngakuthi ngema-safe houses. Ngicabanga ukuthi le mitamo lehlukahlukene umuntu ngeke ayithathele phansi, kepha le ngikukhuthaza le ngokunxusa ukuthi sisakhela ti-strategy sale sisebenza. Lo 2024 uthi asisebenze, angeke sipheke ubita buya sikhude, asibuyeni isifundise sikhude, sende nema-actions ukuthi sivala njani nekushintsha abantu indlela labasebenza ngayo kuleti gaba letihlukene letifanele ukuthi tihlose kuvikela bantu labahlukubetekile noma kwenta isiqiniseko sokuthi labo lekusolakala ukuthi bangahle bahlukubeteke batikhanze baphephile bavikelekile. So lesikhathi sesibi umsakati ngiko nje lokusikusho ukuthi silive sale sicala sisebenza and nasitawucala nyalo kungaba into lenhle and kuyasijabulisa nekubona ukuthi lo mkhuba wokukhuluma lokukhuthaza ukuceza lokuhlukubeta sikwende sekuyajwayeleka uthi noma ngabe ngikuphi iyavela le nkulumo kusemasontweni ngikuphi lapho sikhona khona noma ngisetindzaweni tekutijabulisa asikwendeni kube ngumkhuba bantu bafundziseke ngoba labanye bahlukubetile ngoba abaqondi ukuthi laba kwendako ukuhlukubeta. Kunaloku nengi lokunye lokungasiko nje kuphela ukuthi sibuke lo mthetho lobhekene nekuhlukubeta iSOBV naleminye imithetho letingcingwana letawulekelela ekutheni lokhu lobe kwenta abantu bahlukubeta itolo batikhanze ukuthi noma bakhanze ngathi bakhululekile kulungiswe kubuketwe kabanzi. Siyakubona kuyenteka emithethweni lehlukahlukene live lelilungisako noma lelishayako naloko kuyinto lesikhutsatako ukuthi kukhona lapho siyakhona. Kodwa ekugcineni kwako konke lokutawuwenta ukuthi le ndzaba yokuhlukubeta siyibone incipha, siyibone noma sibhekane nayo ngco ukuthi siyibalule njengesehlakalo.
Thank you so much, Xolani, for your time. And I think I just want to end it. Nganalkama lolvetaga ekuthenini akube indzaba ya everyday. Angeke nje sithi sitawubuka nanya 16 days of action against gender-based violence. Le lonyaka simbukele November 25 to December 10. It should be every day should be a day of action against, ending gender-based violence. And maybe on a parting way, Xolani, usahamba, I think we have seen Gutsi kule festival in nayo. Maybe you have been strategic, but that's for you to tell me. Most of the people that you are working with are artists, people in the space of art. Can you tell us about their approach and how it's going to help maybe further commentate the message on a broader scale?
Ngiyabonga Bhuti. I think art is a very powerful tool to send a message. Kukhona nanamuhla tingoma lesitihlabelako lethi noma ngabe whether simo sakho siphansi noma ujabulile kunengoma loyihlabelako lova umphefumulo uyiphakamusa noma ngabe bowucinzetelekile kunento lethite loyifundzako engomeni lene message lethite lokhanda ukuthi sinayidlalwa bakutshela ukuthi le ngoma yadlalwa nga-75 isengakatalwa nanawe, but you find the message i-appealing and the message igcina isolo nalapho ukhona khona lesikhathi sanamuhla ikusebentela. So i-art is so powerful, it connects people noma ngabe besi
Okay, now I think we're having a slight network issue there. I'm hoping Gutsi Taupinze Ibuye Masinyane, and yes, indeed, she's back. Sorry, Xolani, you got cut off there for a few seconds. Both arts and Gutsi, how powerful art is and the way that we can resonate even with lyrics that date back to the 70s. They can still appeal today. And maybe we can hope that with what you're going to do with this festival, with these artists, the message is about commentate on gender-based violence. They will speak to the generation yethu namuhla nanang lotalwako umfana nabale sibakhuluma ngabo nje ukuthi indvuna yetempilo Mduduzi Mathebula ihambile yobavakashela basatalwa ukuthi nanabo basakhula bakhanze ema-building blocks la sifundzisa tintfo letawusenta ukuthi sibe i-community lengabulalani.
Exactly, and Lolo Kazawa, it's exactly what we are trying to do because art, it's spiritual, it stays, it connects everyone. kude lo ngeva ngazi ukuthi angikawuva lo mlayeto ngoba ngente kakhuluma kwaXolani lo mnyaka muva but nasahlabela khethesi ahlabela mhlabeleli lomunye kukhona umlayeto lohambako latawuva umuntu ukuthi uyathi lento lena lentekako ayikho ayisiko kahle and sitawukhona kufika nale lapho besingakhona kufika khona itolo through art kungabe ngumhlabelo noma kudweba njengoba ubona umdwebo ngemva kwami kunemlayeto lokushoko lo uthi noma uhlethi lakhala lakho uyabuka kukhona lokukushoko lokukukhumbuta kona kungabe noma licansi leliselimdwebo lotsito kukhona lokukushoko lokukhuthata kiko so ngingako sikhuthata nje ukuthi i-art asiyisebenzise thina-ke eMaswati we are more artistic kakhulu with our tradition, with our culture lesita ayisebenzisa because it's so rich to send a message to empower labanye bantu.
Thank you so much for your time and all the best with the festival. Siphinde sithandazele nokuthi ke konke nje lo mkhuhlane lokhona wokuhlukubetana ngetebulili kutaba ngumkhuhlane lo siugcinako lesiugcinile nganako lesasikufunzile kumaphephandaba in the last 2 days. Thank you.
Ngiyabonga kakhulu.
Well, there was Kolani Hlatshwago, the regional coordinator lapha Africa, where 1 billion rising campaign lebuke kulwa ke nekuhlukubetana ngetebulili nekubuka nje malungelo abo make bonke sifuna kubahlola makethe masinyane sitawubuya sibuke indzaba letichamuka ngaphandle kwalapha event.
We at Eswatini Television Authority are committed to observing the Eswatini Communication Commission's Broadcasting Code of Conduct.
Under the code, we are committed to broadcast news that is current, free from hate speech, accurate, balanced, and fair.
From politics to business, health, agriculture, courts, and global news, we bring you the latest updates as they happen, when they happen.
We cover all the sporting codes from the football pitch to the chessboards.
This is Eswatini TV News.
Welcome back to the program. We'll look at international news where Ukraine attempted to break through the lines of invading Russian forces in 2023 as the West stepped up the supply of heavier weapons and advanced missile systems. There's a report.
Invading Russian forces seized the Ukrainian salt mining town of Soledar in January 2023 after months of brutal fighting. Russian missiles continue to rain down on Ukrainian cities. With Ukrainian forces struggling to make battlefield gains, Western allies announced they would send heavy weapons to Kyiv, including tanks and longer-range missile systems. Ahead of the first anniversary of the war in February, US President Joe Biden made an unannounced visit to Kyiv. He said Russian President Vladimir Putin had been wrong about Western commitment to Ukraine.
He thought he could outlast us. I don't think he's thinking that right now.
Evidence suggests that Russia destroyed the Nova Kakhovka Dam in May, flooding vast areas of southeast Ukraine to stall any Ukrainian counter-offensive and creating an environmental disaster. Russia, in return, blamed Ukraine for the structure's collapse. By June, Ukraine was able to recapture some territory, but failed to achieve a major breakthrough in the Russian lines. The Western weapons supplies were too little, too late, says analyst Ian Bond.
The Russians had a long time to build up their minefields and their fixed fortifications, so they're actually in a much stronger position than they were. And we've been asking the Ukrainians to launch their counteroffensive when they have very little air capability.
Mercenaries from Russia's private Wagner army staged a mutiny in June. Putin negotiated an end to the rebellion. Wagner's chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin, was killed in a plane crash a few weeks later. By November, Ukraine's commander-in-chief said the war had reached a stalemate, though Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky disagreed with his assessment. Zelensky did achieve a diplomatic breakthrough as the European Union in December agreed to start formal accession talks.
The negotiation process will not be easy, but the main thing is that historically we have made a determination. Ukraine will always be part of our common European home.
But that European future remains in the balance, says analyst Olga Tokaryuk.
If Ukraine is defeated, if Ukraine fails militarily, all the EU membership negotiations process is worthless. But it will not just be a defeat of Ukraine, it will be a defeat of European Union and the wider West that committed to supporting Ukraine as long as it takes.
Ukrainian forces face a long, bitter winter on the front lines, with vital military aid packages held up in both the United States and the European Union. Analysts say Ukraine's greatest concern for the coming year is Western fatigue, as the US presidential election looms at the end of 2024.
Russia fired scores of missiles and drones at the Ukrainian capital Kyiv and the northeastern city of Kharkiv on Tuesday, killing at least 5 civilians. It followed a warning by President Vladimir Putin on Monday that a Ukrainian air attack on the Russian city of Belgorod, which Moscow said killed 25 civilians, would not go unpunished.
Explosions lit up the morning sky over Kyiv on Tuesday as Russia targeted the Ukrainian capital with a barrage of missiles. One struck in front of an apartment building, leaving behind a massive crater and destruction all around.
I was outside on the other side of the building and I saw the explosion and the red flames and then the smoke. I ran and saw that all the windows of the building had been blown out.
In the aftermath, rescue workers frantically combed through the rubble, searching for survivors. They emerged carrying one person to safety. It was one of 5 areas of the capital struck by Russian missiles on Tuesday. Kyiv's mayor came to the site to survey the damage.
This is another brutal attack on our city. You can see a large crater is behind me. A rocket fragment landed just 10 meters from a house. The whole apartment block has been damaged.
Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, was also left reeling from deadly strikes on Tuesday, with Russian missiles hitting the city's center. Children were among the dozens who were injured. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the nation's air defenses prevented a higher death toll.
The Russians launched about 100 missiles of different kinds. At least 70 were shot down, almost 60 of them in the Kyiv area.
The escalation by Moscow began on Friday, with Russia's largest single attack on Ukraine since the war started almost 2 years ago. And Tuesday's barrage followed promises by Vladimir Putin that a Ukrainian attack on the Russian border city of Belgorod, blamed on Kyiv, and which killed more than 24 people, would not go unpunished.
Israel pulled tanks out of some Gaza City districts on Monday. Residents said it has announced plans to shift tactics and cut back on troop numbers, but fighting raged elsewhere in the Palestinian enclave along with intense bombardment.
The war in Gaza could be entering a new phase. On Monday, residents in the north of the Strip said Israel had withdrawn tanks from several districts in Gaza City. Movement has been reported in the neighbourhoods of Sheikh Radwan, Al-Mina and Tel El-Hawa, a plan that one US official says signals a shift towards more lower-intensity operations in the Palestinian territory. The official also noted that this reflected the success that the Israeli military has had in dismantling Hamas. In another sign that the situation may be changing in and around the Strip, Israel's defence minister announced that residents living just north of Gaza who fled following the October the 7th attacks would soon be able to return home.
I have just returned from the Gaza Strip, where I met our troops. They know their mission and they have delivered excellent results, meaning that here, in our southern communities, life will return to its course. In accordance with the recommendations given by the Israel Defense Forces, displaced communities will soon be able to return home in areas within a range of 4 to 7 kilometers north of the Gaza Strip.
Fighting, however, continues in both the north and the south. Israel carried out airstrikes across the territory on Monday after Hamas launched a barrage of missiles to start the new year. Israel has warned that the war will continue throughout 2024. 300,000 army reservists are to be given a break to prepare for prolonged fighting that the military says is set to come.
5 people aboard a Japan Coast Guard aircraft died Tuesday when it hit a Japan Airlines passenger plane on the ground in a fiery collision at Tokyo's Haneda Airport.
This video shows the exact moment a Japan Airlines jet touched down at Tokyo's Haneda Airport Tuesday evening, colliding with another plane on the runway, then exploding into flames. The second plane on the ground was a Coast Guard aircraft preparing to deliver supplies to the region affected by a powerful earthquake that struck western Japan on Monday.
Regarding the Coast Guard plane, one captain was safely evacuated, but 5 other crew members were confirmed dead.
In spite of the fatalities on the Coast Guard plane, the airline said that all 367 passengers and 12 crew members aboard the Airbus A350 were safely evacuated. A passenger took this video inside of the plane as panic spread throughout the cabin. Another person who was on the plane posted a video of passengers escaping down inflatable slides, writing on social media, "For the first time in my life, I felt like my life was in danger. I was sitting in the 45th row, and immediately after the huge impact, flames erupted from both wings. Only the front hatch could be opened, and while the cabin filled with smoke, I escaped only with my cell phone in hand." After all the passengers and crew were safely off the passenger jet, fire crews worked frantically to put out the flames, and the airport temporarily shut down several of its runways. As of yet, there's no word on what caused the crash, and aviation experts said they have opened an investigation.
South Korean opposition party leader Lee Jae-myung was stabbed in the neck on Tuesday by a man who pushed through a crowd pretending to be his supporter.
By reporters, Lee Jae-myung was touring the site of a proposed airport in Busan when a man made his way through the crowd and stabbed the opposition leader in the neck. The assailant, who wore a paper crown, was quickly wrestled to the ground while bystanders pressed a handkerchief into Lee's wound. The 59-year-old politician was then airlifted to hospital, though police say his injury was not life-threatening. President Yoon Suk-yeol condemned the stabbing and expressed concern for Lee's health.
This type of violence must never be tolerated under any circumstances.
A former governor, Lee narrowly lost the 2022 presidential election to Yoon. He's seen by supporters as an anti-elitist who could crack down on corruption and solve economic inequality, but to critics, he's a dangerous populist who relies on demonizing conservative opponents. Lee is currently on trial for alleged bribery, stemming from a development project when he was mayor of a city near Seoul. He's denied any wrongdoing, calling the allegations a political conspiracy. Lee is widely expected to run in parliamentary elections in April, plus the presidential ballot in 2027. South Korea has a history of political violence despite strict controls on gun possession. In 2022, then Democratic Party chief Song Young-gil was attacked at a public event by an assailant who swung a blunt object at his head. And in 2006, then leader of the Conservative Opposition Party, Park Geun-hye, who later served as president, was also stabbed at an event.
Israel's top court ruled against a key component of the government's controversial legal overhaul, which challenged the powers of the judiciary and sparked mass protests.
Severe and unprecedented damage to the basic characteristics of Israel as a democratic state. That was the rationale cited as Israel's Supreme Court on Monday struck down a major element of the sweeping judicial overhaul plan pushed by the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In a narrow 8-7 vote, the 15-judge panel rejected a law passed in July that would have restricted the court's power to overturn government decisions using what's known as the reasonableness clause. Justice Minister Yariv Levin, the judicial reform plan's chief architect, blasted the decision.
Judges are taking into their hands all the powers, which in a democratic regime are divided in a balanced way between the three branches. It takes away from millions of citizens their voice.
Netanyahu's current government is the most far-right in Israeli history. Its bid to curb judicial power sparked massive street protests. The crisis put on hold in the wake of Hamas's October 7th attack and Israel's subsequent war in Gaza. Netanyahu's supporters say reasonableness is an arbitrary measure for judging constitutionality. The government has also defended its controversial plan by arguing that parliament should not be beholden to the will of unelected judges. Defenders of Israel's liberal democratic traditions, though, say the overhaul paves the way for authoritarian rule and could allow Netanyahu to rescind possible corruption convictions against himself. Israel has just one house of parliament and no formal written constitution. The judiciary is widely seen as a crucial check on government power. The latest ruling sets the stage for a potential crisis of governance, should Netanyahu's government attempt to ignore the court.
Starting with Senegal in February, a number of African heavyweights are set to hold key elections in 2024. France 24 took a look at the key dates in the year ahead of the continent.
Scheduled in the countries highlighted on this map. That's almost 1/3 of the countries in Africa. Among them, Senegal in February. Dozens have registered their candidacy. Among those leading in opinion polls, the current Prime Minister, Amadou Ba, and the imprisoned opposition figure, Ousmane Sonko. The names of the candidates qualified to run will be announced on January 20th at the latest. Some say 2024 could bring significant change.
2024 is a turning point for Senegal. We are at a crossroads.
Elections are also scheduled in Algeria, in Ghana, where surveys show the opposition could win. In South Africa, the ANC could for the first time lose its majority in parliament. In Rwanda, voters will elect a president, with Paul Kagame running for a 4th term. This as the country prepares to commemorate the 1994 genocide. African countries will mark a milestone in their trade integration this year. All central banks are expected to join the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, which makes cross-border payments easier. Experts forecast that growth will be higher in 2024 at roughly 4%. One of the first and most exciting events of the year for many is likely to also have economic fallouts, but it's first and foremost a sports event, the African Cup of Nations. Fans are expected in Ivory Coast on January 13th.
Kolomhla sibonga ukuthi uhleli nasilomhla ehlelweni kodwa kufike lesikhathi sanyalo siyakuvalelisa sibonane kusasa usale kahle.